What happens when a rising political star sits down for what she believes will be a friendly late-night interview, only to discover that the host has come prepared with receipts from her most controversial moments? That's exactly what unfolded when White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt faced off against Stephen Colbert in a tense, unexpected exchange that had audiences buzzing. This wasn't the usual late-night political softball. It was a clash of sharp media training against relentless satire, journalism colliding with political spin, and the result was explosive. From the moment Leavitt walked onto the stage, the tension was obvious. She carried herself with practiced confidence, her blonde hair shining under the studio lights, smiling and waving to the audience with all the polish of a seasoned politician. Across from her sat Colbert, wearing his trademark smirk and already looking like a man with a plan. After a warm introduction, she settled into her seat with a perfect smile and folded hands, thanking Colbert for having her on the show in that carefully measured cadence that sounds warm, but gives away nothing. Colbert wasted no time. He acknowledged her quick rise from congressional candidate to White House press secretary, asking what her secret was for climbing the ladder so fast. Leavitt delivered the expected answer: hard work, dedication, and passion for serving the American people, her tone crisp, controlled, and safe. But Colbert wasn't about to let her glide through the interview unchallenged. He leaned forward, eyes gleaming, and pressed her on past comments from her campaign days. The audience felt the shift immediately. Leavitt straightened in her chair as Colbert quoted a town hall remark in which she accused members of Congress of chasing television appearances instead of governing. She tried to soften the blow with a vague, generalized answer about a culture problem in Washington, but Colbert wasn't satisfied. He dug deeper, reading her exact words about Congresswoman Martinez being a publicity-seeking opportunist who wouldn't know real policy if it hit her in the face. The audience gasped, and for the first time Leavitt's flawless smile faltered. She tried to claim the remark was taken out of context, but Colbert pounced, mockingly offering to roll the tape for everyone to see. For a split second, the polished press secretary seemed caught between instinct and training, pausing just long enough for the audience to sense her discomfort. Finally, she pivoted, insisting the conversation should focus on the administration's current work rather than rehashing old campaign rhetoric. But Colbert wasn't letting go. "Old?" he quipped, leaning back with a grin. "This was just 6 months ago. And now Congresswoman Martinez sits on the Committee on Homeland Security, the same committee your boss relies on for national security briefings." The studio erupted, and Leavitt, though still smiling, looked like someone who had walked into a friendly interview and found herself on the wrong side of a late-night ambush. When Colbert pressed her, reminding the audience that she had once called a fellow lawmaker a publicity-seeking opportunist, and was now working with that same person on matters of national security, the tension in the room thickened. He pointed out the contradiction, asking whether it revealed poor judgment. The audience fell silent, sensing that this was no longer light-hearted late-night banter but political theater of the highest order. Leavitt's voice sharpened as she accused Colbert of manufacturing controversy. She argued that real leadership meant working with people despite past disagreements. Colbert leaned in, pouncing on her inconsistency, reminding her that she had recently praised Congresswoman Martinez's thoughtful approach to border security legislation. How, he asked, could Martinez transform in just 6 months from an opportunist to a thoughtful policymaker? Was Leavitt wrong then, or was she being dishonest now? The question lingered heavily, and though her training told her to deflect, Leavitt hesitated before offering a careful response. People can grow. Situations can change. Colbert echoed her words, twisting them back at her. People can grow, sure, but it seems like your opinion is what's grown. He suggested her views were alarmingly flexible, raising questions about whether her positions were rooted in conviction or convenience. The studio buzzed with electricity, the polished facade beginning to crack. She tried to pivot, saying viewers wanted to hear about real issues, but Colbert cut her off, insisting that the truth itself was the real issue. Then came the bombshell. Colbert brought up a press briefing from just 3 weeks earlier, where Leavitt had assured reporters the administration had no prior knowledge of a pharmaceutical merger connected to her husband's consulting firm. He reminded her of her exact words. We had absolutely no advance warning about this merger. The administration learned about it the same time as everyone else. He then produced evidence, an email sent from her husband's firm to the Commerce Department 2 weeks before that very briefing, outlining the merger timeline. The audience erupted in shock. Leavitt's composure faltered. She gripped her hands tighter and tried to retreat behind privacy, saying she would not discuss her husband's business on the show. But Colbert snapped back instantly. She had already made it public when she used the White House podium to deny knowledge. He accused her of either lying to the American people or being so out of touch that her husband hadn't told her about a major deal. Either way, he said, it raised serious questions. Her voice rose as she insisted her family was off limits. Colbert didn't blink. Your family became relevant the moment you used your position to shield their dealing, he said coldly. You can't have it both ways. The audience was riveted, sensing this interview had shifted into uncharted territory. This was no longer entertainment. This was a live clash between institutional power and journalistic accountability, and Karoline Leavitt was visibly struggling to keep her balance under the relentless spotlight. Colbert leaned forward, his tone sharpening into that calm but devastating register he used when delivering his most pointed critiques. You didn't have complete information, he said, but you presented your answer as if you did. You said absolutely no advance warning. That's not the language of uncertainty. It's the language of someone shaping reality to make the public believe something that isn't true. Leavitt's jaw tightened, her professional mask slipping just enough to reveal the strain beneath. I resent the implication that I would deliberately mislead anyone, she shot back. But Colbert pressed harder. Then explain how someone in your position makes such a definitive statement without checking the facts. Because that leaves us with only two options. Either you're incompetent at your job or you're deliberately deceptive. And frankly, Karoline, I don't think you're incompetent. The silence in the studio was absolute. Even Colbert's normally supportive crowd seemed stunned at the bluntness of the charge. Leavitt suddenly stood, her chair scraping against the stage. I think we're done here, she said sharply. Colbert remained seated, gazing up at her with a look of measured curiosity. Are we? Because I've got about 6 more examples of similar statements you've made at that podium, statements that don't hold up under scrutiny. Her voice wavered with anger. This is ridiculous. I came here expecting a normal interview, not some kind of ambush. Colbert arched his brows. An ambush? Karoline, these are your own words. If being asked to explain them feels like an ambush, maybe the problem isn't with the questions. Her finger jabbed toward him. The problem is you twisting everything I've said to fit some narrative you already decided on. Colbert tilted his head. And what narrative is that? She didn't hesitate. That I'm some kind of liar, a fraud. That I don't deserve the position I hold. For a rare moment, Colbert paused, choosing his next words with care. Karoline, I never said you don't deserve your position. What I'm questioning is whether you're using it responsibly. There's a difference between mistakes and deliberately misleading the public. Leavitt snapped back instantly. Every press secretary makes mistakes. Sure, Colbert replied. But most of them don't have their spouses financially benefiting from the very policies they're defending at that podium. That's not a mistake, that's a conflict of interest. His words landed like a thrown gauntlet. Leavitt froze, her face cycling visibly through anger, frustration, calculation. Finally, she spat out, I've had enough of this character assassination disguised as journalism. Character assassination? Colbert asked, genuinely baffled. Karoline, I'm literally just reading your words back to you. Her retort came sharp. You're ripping them out of context, building implications that don't exist, all under the guise of comedy so you can pretend it isn't just a partisan hit job. For the first time, Colbert's expression hardened. If you think accountability journalism is partisan, maybe you're not cut out for public service. That was the spark. Leavitt's composure shattered. Not cut out for public service? She erupted, her voice booming loud enough to rattle the microphones. I've dedicated my entire adult life to serving this country, and you're going to sit there and question my fitness for office? Colbert didn't flinch. I'm questioning your honesty. There's a difference. She laughed, sharp and humorless. Honesty? Coming from you? From a man who built his career playing a fake conservative character, and you want to lecture me about honesty? That was satire, Colbert said evenly. Clearly labeled entertainment. What you say from the White House podium is supposed to be factual information for the American people. Leavitt's anger flared white-hot. She pointed directly at him, her voice cracking with fury. Don't you dare lecture me about responsibilities. You sit in your little TV studio making jokes, while people like me actually do the hard work of governing. The studio was frozen, the audience holding its breath as even the camera operators seemed uncertain whether to keep rolling. Colbert's voice stayed calm. Karoline, the hard work of governing includes being truthful with the public. When you make false statements from that podium, you're not governing. You're spreading propaganda. Propaganda? She echoed, her voice trembling now. You think I'm some kind of propaganda minister? Do you have any idea how insulting that is? Colbert's tone didn't waver. I think you've gotten very comfortable bending the truth whenever it's convenient. And I think the American people deserve better than that. Leavitt stared at him for a moment, her chest rising and falling rapidly. When she finally spoke, her voice was dangerously quiet. You know what your problem is, Stephen? You think because you have a television show that makes you some kind of journalist, but you're not. You're a comedian who got lucky. Colbert nodded calmly. Maybe so. But at least I'm honest about what I am. That was the breaking point. Leavitt's face flushed red, and when she spoke again, her voice shook with rage. Honest? You want to talk about honest? Let's talk about how you ambushed me here tonight. Let's talk about how you clearly coordinated this hit job with opposition researchers. Let's talk about how you're using your platform to destroy someone's career for entertainment value. Colbert's tone remained steady. I'm using my platform to ask public officials tough questions about their public statements. If that destroys your career, maybe the problem isn't with the questions. This is unbelievable, Leavitt snapped, shaking her head. You sit there acting all righteous like you're some kind of truth teller. But what you're really doing is character assassination for ratings. Colbert's expression grew serious. Karoline, I've asked you about statements you made publicly from an official government podium. If you consider that character assassination, then maybe you need to reconsider the statements you've been making. Her voice rose, echoing across the studio. Reconsider? I think you need to reconsider what it means to be a decent human being. The audience shifted uncomfortably. The atmosphere had turned from political theater into something raw and deeply personal. I'm trying to be decent, Colbert said quietly. I'm trying to hold public officials accountable for their words and actions. I thought that's what journalism was supposed to do. Leavitt laughed bitterly. This isn't journalism. This is a public execution. And you know what? I'm not going to sit here and let you destroy my reputation for your audience's entertainment. She pushed back from her chair, ready to leave, but then turned, her face twisted with fury. You want to know what I really think, Stephen? I think you're a small, petty man who gets his kicks from tearing down people who are actually trying to make a difference in this world. For the first time, Colbert looked genuinely stung, but his voice stayed level. I'm trying to make a difference too, Karoline, by asking the questions that need to be asked. No, Leavitt shot back, stepping toward him. You're trying to make yourself feel important by destroying other people. And the worst part is you've convinced yourself that you're some kind of hero for doing it. The confrontation had reached a fever pitch, security edging closer to the stage. Colbert softened his tone. Karoline, if you would just address the substance of what I've asked instead of attacking me personally, we could have a productive conversation. Her voice cracked as she shouted, Productive? There's nothing productive about this ambush. You've already decided I'm guilty and now you're just trying to get me to confess on camera. I'm trying to get you to explain your own words, Colbert said firmly. My words? She repeated with contempt. You want to talk about words? Here are some words for you. This interview is over. This whole charade is over. I'm done letting you use me for your little comedy show. She stormed toward the exit, but Colbert called after her. Karoline, we still have 10 minutes left in the segment. She spun around one final time, her face burning with rage. Then fill it with your jokes, Stephen, because that's all you really are. Just another comedian pretending to be something more important than he actually is. With that, she stormed off stage, leaving Colbert alone at his desk. The studio audience sat frozen in stunned silence. Colbert looked directly into the camera, his face somber. Well, that was unexpected. No laughter followed. The moment was too raw, too real for comedy. He exhaled softly. I guess we'll go to commercial, he said, and the cameras cut away. What did you think about this explosive confrontation? Was Colbert right to press so hard on these issues, or did he cross a line with his questioning?